there's a couple different schools of thought on franchise development and who does it. I personally love when I hear that a founder or co-founder is doing the franchise dev early on. I know it's, eventually it's going to outgrow you. Sure. You're going to need to be in other roles. But I do love when I hear that founders are doing it, because when I did it, I loved it because I got to really hear what candidates were asking.
Yeah.
And I feel like I needed to know. And I also felt like I had a much deeper connection with the candidates. And when they came in, I had that rapport with them. It was different than in the later years for me when I had somebody in Fran Dev and then they would come into Discover Day. They would meet me, the founder, and I sit down at Discover Day and I kind of tell them the story. It was just different. I just felt like it was a much richer relationship that I had with them early on. It's a lot of work, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, especially when we're talking about these early franchises being so important, these are going to be the people that help shape the brand, and it's your brand. So you have to, if they're going to be helping you shape it, you should be selecting them.
Right.
So that's my take on it. I know, I've definitely spoken to a lot of people in franchising, and it does seem to be very split, evenly. Like, you need to automate this process, and then half the people are saying you need to be in front of this process. So, I'm definitely the latter.
I think and it's a combination too, right? We have to automate the process. But
yes, exactly.
Right, but we like being involved early on.
Exactly.
At the same time, if there is an emerging founder that's listening to this podcast and they're not somebody that has a sales background or is comfortable in sales, would you agree they probably shouldn't be doing it?
Yes.
Though?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's couch that, right?
Yeah.
Because you and I are comfortable in selling.
Yeah.
So it was fine for us, but not everybody should be selling.
Yeah, that is true. It is true. It probably does make sense in a lot of cases, yeah.
Yes. Most of the founders, though, that we talk with are more charismatic. That's probably why they're the founder. They're maybe a little more charismatic, outgoing, love talking about the brand. And I just don't think there's anybody that can replace the founder when it comes to talking about the brand on how we really got started, as opposed to somebody else telling your story.
Yeah. People love the enthusiasm. People love to hear the enthusiasm. They're enthusiastic too. These, people buying into an emerging franchise, like you said, they're risk takers.
Right.
They're doing it because they're passionate about this brand and they love it. So that's, they like to hear that mirrored back. So
for sure,
it's good.
So in the nearly 4 years now you've been franchising, what's been the biggest surprise that you've seen?
Well, I mean, we were, there's not been a ton of huge surprise. I would say it's a lot of what I thought. I guess I wasn't expecting the community to be so big and how willing people are to share what they've learned in franchising. We weren't, 100% familiar with everything franchising. Obviously,
sure.
Like I said, it's been very, very interesting how big this community is, because you wouldn't know. A lot of people look at franchise and think restaurants, right? McDonald's and this stuff. But getting into it, you see, everything can be franchised. Even look at your business, and that's not something 6 years ago you could have told me would be most of the things I've seen. And so being at like the conference, like you mentioned, the New Orleans conference,
you were at the Emerging Franchise Conference.
Yeah, so I was shocked at how much information is out there and how willing other founders are and other people in franchising are to share what they've learned with you. And that's been awesome.
Was that the first franchise conference you'd been to?
Yeah.
I bet you wish you had gone in the first year.
Yeah, if you ask me, if you ask me later what I would
do all over again,
it would be do that earlier. 100%. Get involved as early as you can, and there's just a huge wealth of knowledge out there, and I love that. I mean, we were obviously going into it, we were well read, and we were looking up a lot of this. What do we need to know going into this? But just to know that there are people that are out there that are completely willing to share with you everything they know, and I hope to be able to give that back someday. But it's huge. Yeah, it's great.
Franchising,
get involved with that as early as you can.
Yeah, there's always a role for somebody in franchising to to give back. Did you leave New Orleans at the Emerging Conference with sort of like a couple of things like on your to-do list or on your goals? What were some of the...
I had a notebook that was, it took me like 3 days to condense all my notes from that conference. And I did. I went on my computer and it was like a 30-page document.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy how much.
Would you be willing to share maybe some of the big takeaways or some of the things that you said, here's what we need to do next?
Yeah. I mean, it was systems. It was huge. And that was very, very... that was obvious. It was get these systems in place, and we have our systems, of course, but in an emerging franchise, that's you don't know what you don't know in a lot of cases, and so just realizing that these processes need to be automated. You work with the best people that you can find. When you're a lean team, you don't have a lot of bandwidth. You have to find these people that are going to put you in that are going to do the right thing for you, and So there was that. There's systems. There's the candidates, which we already knew, of course. We want to be working with the best people, but it is heavily emphasized just, and they will repeat it at these conferences, obviously, to not just sell a franchise to anybody who can afford to buy one, obviously. Right. So that's a huge thing. And yeah, so much stuff. There's so much.
Yeah. Well, growing as a franchisor in terms of number of people in your team and having more bench strength is obviously where you're gonna end up going.
Yeah.
How many people are part of your team now?
So it's still me and my partner, Van, doing a lot of it. We recently brought in somebody with a lot of senior experience in franchising to help with strategy. We call him Chief Strategy Officer. He's been great, huge help. And then we have, like I mentioned, a couple people that work in our corporate stores that help with administrative and certain things like recipe guides and charts and things like that, and then come out and help train the stores and that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're running lean and mean right now.
Very.
That's great. What are you guys most proud of?
Oh, man. I mean, did I say franchisees yet?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. The franchisees are great. Our acai, our main product. I'm very proud of our product. Of course.
I'm looking forward to you opening a location here in Tampa.
Soon enough.
You're like surrounding all of Tampa with locations around Florida. Yeah. You're gonna be.
Oh, we'll be here soon enough. It's the next domino to fall. This and Miami, we really want to get into.
Yeah. Probably a great market.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
What's your vision for the company? Have you guys talked about how many locations we think we can grow this thing out to?
Yeah, we would be happy with at a lot of different numbers. I mean, we don't need to. We're not in like a massive rush to get to 100, 500, any number of locations. It's all about working with the right people, of course. But yeah, we'll open as many as they'll let us.
Yeah.
as long as we're being well received where we open, we're going to keep opening them. And, even international someday. Who knows?
Cool. How do you guys decide on where territory, or I should say how big a territory is or how close they are to one another?
Well, in our FTD, it's stipulated. Obviously, that changes based on whether it's in a city or where it is. But we're getting a lot more meticulous about this now, like I mentioned, with, leaning on real estate partners and data and figuring out territories like that. But no, we have a few locations in Southwest Florida, so it's a bit of a question there. Where are these? But outside of that, it was just there's not that many other people nearby, so it was pretty easy and not super well thought out. I'll say
of course. But
yeah,
I'm glad you admitted that. Yeah. I would have admitted that for me too.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake I made
was
a few years in. This was so short-sighted, but I'm gonna admit this. It was a couple years in, and we got a call from a guy in Hawaii that said, "I want to buy a franchise." And so somebody in my office said to me, "Well, we need to design the territory." And you know what I said to the person in my office? Are you kidding me? We got a call from somebody in Hawaii. I'm probably never going to get another call. Give him all of Honolulu.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, today, and I love Roger. He's a great franchisee for I9 Sports, but he has a massive business, as you could probably imagine. He has it should be several territories, but it was because I was back in the day going, are you kidding? I was just so excited. Somebody called from Hawaii. I'm like, give him the whole island.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Don't do as I did for sure.
Yeah. We definitely were more generous with that at the beginning. So
yeah.
It is now. It's it's a lot more based on trade areas and there's data that there's firms that will tell you this is where you need to be putting your locations.
That changes everything. I've actually just talked about this on a recent episode of how just franchising has changed, like the access you have as an emerging franchisor. That really it was around, but it was more affordable for the big guys 20 years ago.
Right.
And now like having that franchise territory development where there's a lot of different programs out there.
Yeah.
But using the technology where you're, kind of matching where you have existing locations and those demographics to be able to replicate that throughout the country, that's a game changer. You don't make the same mistakes that a franchisor like me made 20 years ago when I get a call from somebody in, the Midwest and I go, well, the population matches.
Yeah.
That's all we went on. You went on the population. You didn't go on the psychodemographics, which obviously have been available for a long time.
Data, it's insane what you can learn from data.
We are as much in the data business as we are in any other business. Everything has got to be data driven. Of course, still we have that human touch. We still have that connection with our franchisees, but so many of the decisions we make are not just, they can't be on the gut instinct, or they can't be on the, well, I got a call from a guy in Hawaii. That's never going to happen again. So give them full thing. Like,
or you at least need to back up what you're already, maybe an opinion with some data and say, okay, this is just affirming what I already knew to be true.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.